We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる。
Mumbai are all set to take on Punjab in what will be match 17 of this year's IPL 2021, and it will also be the last game for both these sides at a very tricky Chidambaram Stadium at CHEPAUK. This is Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket Info T20 Time Out, powered by Intel. I'm Raunak Kapoor in the company of Steyn and Ajit Agarkar. News from the CHEPAUK is that KL Rahul, who's desperate for his team to get a win, they're not so far behind. If they win, they'll go at the same number of points as the Mumbai Indians. They won the toss and they're going to have a bowl first. And I've stopped discussing what makes sense when you win tosses at Chennai, because teams bat first and they mess it up, and they chase and they mess it up. So Ajit Agarkar, is that a sound call from Rahul at the toss?
It was like the previous game. He had a little bit of a pause after he won the toss. He almost was hoping that he loses the toss. He said, "And okay, we'll bat first. Bowl first." Not sure. I mean, teams have found chasing difficult on this pitch, and against the Mumbai attack. I mean, Mumbai hasn't played well yet. And Mumbai Indians, in spite of scoring a 150, they defended 137. They almost defended. So it's a brave call. I mean, the only thing I can think of is because they've again gone with a similar team with lots of guys. I wouldn't say lots of batsmen, but lots of guys who can bat till about 7-8. They fancy chasing, but it's a brave call. I mean, hopefully the pitch is good and it's the right call, but it's a brave one at this point.
Yeah, these games at Chennai have been so hard to predict because of how challenging it's been for batting, Dale. Even Mumbai, who fancied batting first, haven't quite got the scores that they would have wanted. They're not quite understood how to pace the innings and set a score. In light of what you've seen at Chennai, is how much harder does that make it for teams who win tosses to figure out what to do?
I'm done predicting what's going to happen in Chennai. We've seen scores of 200, we've seen scores of 137 almost get defended. It's actually quite a fascinating ground. It's been quite a good one to watch. Some of the games have kind of loitered out a little bit to the 19th over, but teams have gotten over the line and they've won the game. That's all that really matters. But Mumbai, they're going to have to put it together tonight. They're going to require that middle order to really come to the party. Hardik Pandya, especially, he needs to come to the party for them. And guys that are in, like Sky. If Sky is in, because every time I see him bat, he looks like he's going to go on to have a massive innings. If he's in tonight, he's got to take it deep for them. And they just need to understand that if they can get to the 170 mark tonight, they could probably defend that, which is, roughly a past score in anyone's mind. On that ground, who knows? 150 could be defendable. Yeah. But they really need that middle order of them to come to the party tonight. And another guy who also needs to come to the party tonight is Quinny de Kock. He's had a couple games now. He's out of quarantine. He's had a look at it. He's had a good feel. They're going to want him to score some runs tonight for them.
I'm interested that you said in your opening comments that it's been fun to watch. It's actually been incredible because we've seen chases gone wrong and we've seen De Villiers and Maxwell still play a blinder of an innings batting first. But as a player, do you enjoy playing on such surfaces? Start of a big tournament. This is the penultimate game in Chennai. There's one more over the weekend. But as a player, do you enjoy this Chennai these Chennai conditions, Dale?
I love it, actually. I know that paces, they always talk about grounds like the Wacker, because of the pace and the bounce, and maybe Wankhede in India where there's a little bit of pace and bounce. But to be honest with you, those are the kind of grounds where I felt like I could go for a lot of runs. Guys could cut me, they could score a lot of runs down past third man, past point. The wickets were so true that they could stand still and belt you over mid-wicket, over long on for sixes. So I kind of preferred bowling at grounds like Chennai, where it was a little bit lower, a little bit slower, there was a little bit of grip. I never want to go for runs. Any bowler that you speak to, they never want to go for runs. I want to make life as difficult as possible for the batters without having to make it difficult for myself. I don't want to have to run in and try and bowl a Yorker, and if I just miss my Yorker, get smashed out of the ground. Whereas at a ground like Chennai, you can run in and you've got this whole length of an area to aim at. You can bowl your change of pace. You can bowl your pace on, and it really is a difficult ground, especially when there's that one long side to the leg side. It's tough to get the ball there. I would have enjoyed being a bowler at Chennai right now. Those are the kind of grounds that I particularly enjoyed bowling at.
You know so much about these grounds, Ajit, but is this just a batsman versus bowler feeling that the bowlers wouldn't mind Chennai? Or if you go try and speculate what the franchise is thinking, they'd probably be saying, God, I wish you didn't have so many games at Chennai.
Yeah, I'm sure they would be saying that. I'm with Dale on this. I mean, as a bowler, I'd rather take that slightly bigger ground, tough to score or tough to play big shots off. And we've seen what kind of ability batters have these days. You know, the power game that they have. So on a flat pitch, it's always hard to stop any batter, even if you bowl well. So as a bowler, you'd enjoy it, but as a franchise or as a team, you'd always be worried because you could easily lose four if you play four there. I mean, we've seen Sunrisers struggle there when they were there. So Mumbai haven't quite got going, and then you hope it doesn't impact the rest of your tournament, which is always a worry because some days you feel like the pitch looks good, you win the toss and bat first, and then you don't end up getting enough because it's difficult, and then you sometimes lose the toss, and chasing is difficult. So yeah, as a team, you wouldn't really want too many games on a pitch like that because it can go sideways pretty quickly.
All right. Now, team changes, just the one for the Punjab Kings, and Ravi Bishnoi will make his first appearance. Murugan Ashwin, who's playing at his home ground, it comes to state cricket, gets just the one game, and it looks like a call that Rahul's made just based on what he's seen of Murugan Ashwin. Ajit, we were wondering whether we'd see both leg spinners together, but you did make a point. Very often teams get 100 out and they then drop a bowler in the next game.
It's normal. I think it's a world over phenomena. It's not not restricted to India, I think, but it's yeah. I mean, again, look at on Moises Henrique's is batting at 7, Fabian Allen at 8. Again, it's the same sort of bowling that they picked. Huda obviously bowled well, so now they'd be hoping that there is enough in the pitch. But if there is enough in the pitch, they've got to go and chase the runs. So. Yeah, I'd still opt for 4 sort of frontline bowlers. At the moment, they have 3. If you look at Bishnoi, Arshdeep, and Mohammad Shami, and the rest are all rounders or bits and pieces, if you like, and they are hoping that their batting then does the job. So for that to happen, it'll have to be a really good pitch. So not quite. I mean, I'm glad Bishnoi's got an opportunity because he did well last season. He looked very promising, and if you wanted to ever play a game, you'd rather play in Chennai than at Wankhede. So right ground to get. I'm not sure the composition of the team. It looks very similar, and now they'd be desperately hoping that it's a good pitch.
Yeah, we discussed this in the last Punjab game as well, that regardless of the fact that they went down easily, that bowling looked a little thin by dropping both Richardson and Meredith. And Dale, I'd love for you to get into the minds of Meredith and Richardson. First IPL, you get 4 games at the Wankhede Stadium where you go for 50s and 40s. You then move to better conditions, like you pointed out, and out you go for the team for 2 batting all-rounders.
Yes, that's how it is sometimes. You just feel like had you started the tournament there, you may have had your economy rate down. You would have gotten a couple easy wickets. And I don't mean easy wickets. No wickets are ever easy, but like you could have bowled a back of a length ball, could have held up, slogged straight up in the air. Whereas in the Wankhede, you bowl a back of a length ball, it's going out of the ground. So they're probably sitting in the dressing room going, why, why? But KL forced to make a couple changes. They've lost a couple games, and they're desperate to try and find a combination for them to start winning tonight. And probably that's why they've decided to bowl first tonight. Before that little bit of dew kind of kicks in tonight, they want the leggies to get the best use out of that ball whilst it's still dry and it can get a bit of grip out of that wicket. But for Kane Richardson, for Jai Richardson, shame. He's probably just thinking, another day, and it would have been a different story.
Well, they didn't bat well enough in that last game. Yes, Ajit, something to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, just you look at the composition of the attack, and they'll have to get everything out of their attack to stop Mumbai now from scoring or getting to a total, which then, in spite of all the batting that they have, whether you have a KL Rahul or a Mayank or a Gale or a Pooran or Huda's in good form, Shah Rukh Khan looks quite promising, and suddenly becomes a lot more pressure, isn't it? And that's why you need bowlers. I'm a little bit surprised that they've gone again with the same sort of bowling composition or the balance. It just doesn't look right to me.
Are these the sort of these teams dependent more on bowling first, and therefore you have to gamble a little bit that if you win the toss, then Fabian Allen maybe at Chennai becomes a 4 over bowler if he starts in the power play. Then you've got a deep batting no matter what you're chasing. Is there more reason to sort of play these sorts of teams in conditions like this?
But if these are good conditions, then I don't think that attack is likely to stop Mumbai Indians, unless Mumbai Indians really don't bat well. If it's a good pitch, so they've just spent over 20 crores on two fast bowlers
Yeah,
or two seamers
yeah.
at the auction, and both are at the moment sitting out. So look, I mean, obviously they now have decided that to put all eggs in one basket and just chase down whatever's put in front of them. Like I said, now they'd be desperately hoping that it's the pitch stays good for 40 overs.
All right. Now I know I've got two fast bowlers with me, but I know fast bowlers love to criticize batsmen in detail. So let's get into that. Why have the
Love
Mumbai
it.
Indians,
Can't wait.
as good as the batting team is there, why have they made their 10s and 11s bat as often as they have in this tournament already? Batting first, Dale. You mentioned a couple of names at the top of the show, Quinton de Kock, but it looks like Mumbai plays so well for parts of their innings, and suddenly the train just goes off the rail. What's missing?
Yeah, just I don't know, but I think the guys just need to understand that maybe the 180 to 200 score is maybe out of reach at Chennai. Understanding maybe that a lower total of a 160 or 170 could be a winning score. And trying not to push the trigger too early. Watching Hardik Pandya bat the other night, I don't mean to harp on him here, but to go first ball like that, it just shows, and without having previously scored any runs, you just have to ask why. What was the thinking? So they really just need to kind of like work out what a score is that they feel is going to be enough for them to win games, because their bowlers are almost winning games. 137 and they're almost winning games.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's because they play at Wankiti so much and so used to scores of being over the 180 to 200 mark. They kind of just don't know how to not push down their foot on that gas so much. They really need to figure out that they can bat out these 20 overs. Sky needs to really bat. He's looked the best of all of them, in my opinion, but he's only batted for 7 or 6 overs. We've got to see him bat for 13. If he's going to get in early, then you're going to see them score those 180s upwards and make the bowler's job a lot easier.
Yeah, you mentioned Surya Kumar Yadav. Can there be an element of confusion in the way things go batting first at Chennai, Ajit? Whenever Surya Kumar Yadav's gotten out, it looks like it's been good for batting, 60, 70 in the first 6-7 overs. So everyone else comes out thinking this is easy, and suddenly your many wickets fall and you're trying your best to get to 150. So is that just a reflection of not being able to get the Chennai surface, or does it call for a change in game plan by Mumbai batting first?
Yeah, certainly calls for a change. I think both captains said at the toss that perhaps you shouldn't be looking at 180. Rohit said, but it's not the first game. You can understand the first game, perhaps the second game, but now they've played a few games here, so you understand the conditions, and maybe you need to just, bat a bit smartly. I don't, and Mumbai Indians are very good at doing that usually, or maybe perhaps they don't need to do that because they play at one kid and generally they score big with that kind of batting. So, but now they need to, because they've scored very quickly at the start. Rohit's been in good striking form. Surya Kumar Yadav looked. I think he's probably the only guy who's looked fluent from ball one in that batting lineup. But he hasn't gone on. But the other guys, perhaps you don't necessarily need to target 180, and that's what maybe they need to realize. I think that Pollard's last 2 ball sixes were a classic example at that point. He stayed there, hit a couple of sixes, and that was the difference in the game. May not always happen that you defend 150. But in trying to get 180, you're ending up at 130, which then it becomes even more difficult as good as your bowling attack is. So just bat smartly. I think KL Rahul said it. We perhaps approached it not in the right way in the previous game, trying to score too many and ended up with too little.
Do modern day batsmen, in your experience, Dale, get a bit annoyed when they have to work hard for their runs?
Maybe, I think so. Sometimes we play on such good wickets these days, that scores of 200 look very easy. and sometimes having to apply yourself. And it does look amazing when guys get down on one knee and they play all the lap shots and late cuts, and they go for 4 and 6 and everything like that. But there's nothing like a solid good technique and being able to rotate the strike around a ball that will keep you at sevens. I mean, Callis was a great example of somebody like that. He didn't particularly have all those shots, but he was able to always score runs. And strange thing is that when I played for the Proteas, we had a guy like Sky in our team. His name was AB de Villiers. And we'd get bowled out for 100, and he would score 70 of the runs. And he'd be like, I don't understand, guys. The wicket was so good today. And everyone else would go out there trying to bat like AB and just get nothing, And we just wish that he would just bat for longer, because then he would get us to 200. So if Sky is in that kind of form, if he can just hang around a little bit longer, you'll see Mumbai will get bigger scores.
Yeah, I was just going to say that if AB de Villiers is watching this show right now, he's probably going like, what the hell is all the fuss all about? Ajit played in a team which had a genius for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, but you've got to accept that some of the guys are a little bit different, and everyone's got to adapt according to their own game, isn't it? I mean, that's why even though you have different individuals or as talented, everyone's approach is a little bit different. That's what makes team game or team sport quite fascinating, and they've got to accept that. I that's the thing. I mean, Mumbai 2 or 3 times now in the last 6 or 7 overs have lost 4 or 5 or 6 wickets, which is so unusual. So they've got themselves in a position to get more than that's needed for this pitch, but haven't quite able to do that. Maybe tonight's the night if KL Rahul's put them in, and tonight's the night where the pitch might actually play well.
All right, fair enough. Now they've played the same team, the Mumbai Indians, so they continue going in with the 3 overseas. Jayant Yadav gets another game. Fair call, Ajit. This is a stronger, more balanced Mumbai team for these conditions, even though it's without a 4th overseas player and a likely seamer.
Yeah, I mean, few left-handers, isn't it, in that lineup with Chris Gale and Nicholas Pooran, couple of key players for them, and he's not bowled badly at all. The conditions have been helpful. Got a few runs as well, so no need to change what's working for you. And I think that's the right balance for Mumbai Indians. It's just such a good team that even though, I mean, that's probably the only team that can afford to do that without losing any sort of balance in their 11.
Yeah, it's such early days, Dale. It's only 4 games and they won 2 and lost 2. And Mumbai have started more poorly than this, haven't they? They lost 4 or 5 games and still ended up winning it. But sometimes you've got such a secure first 11 and they don't fire. You're just trying to think, okay, what can you do? It's not like someone on the bench is making the team any stronger, but then they don't end up getting wins together. They're sometimes a hard team to really analyze, Mumbai Indians.
No, they're probably the most difficult team, actually, because if you look at my notes here, I've got everything about everybody else, and then Mumbai, nothing, because there's nothing that you really have to write about them. They've got all the players. They very, very rarely do they even change their team. The team stays the same a lot for a massive period of the time. It shows how much faith they've got in their side, and rightly so. I mean, if you're dragging teams out of a score of 137 to the last over, you can sense that there's a belief that they can win anything. I'm sure if they scored 110, they would have done the same thing. So there's not much to fault them on. They really just need to start kicking on, and it is early in the season. They're not far away from getting a couple more wins under their belt, and for them, ultimately, they're really just and every team, to be honest with you, they just want to make it into those playoffs. From there, if you feel like you're playing the best cricket, that's when you can go on to win the tournament. But this whole beginning phase is just trying to figure out who your best combinations are and how you go about playing your season, I suppose. And they're just kind of a little bit up and down right now.
Do you sense, though, Ajit, with the way the IPL is structured this time, that we're so used to Mumbai Indians making up ground that we're never going to worry about them if they lose 2 or 3 in their first 5 or 6 games. But you have Bangalore already winning 4, you've got Chennai already winning 3. You could see Delhi Capitals looking good. Could this be a tighter IPL than perhaps other years? Will Mumbai maybe possibly even find it harder to catch up later? They need to probably cash in on the start of the season?
Perhaps the challenge is neutral venues, isn't it? I mean, you end up playing 7 games at 1KD every year, and you sort of dominate most of those games, even if you fall behind. Similar thing with CSK. So CSK at the moment will be on. For RCB it might actually be working in their favor, not playing at the Chinnaswamy. Where their bowling sometimes struggles towards the end of the innings, which is because it's such a tough venue, and then the batters are under a little bit more pressure. So for different teams, it might work differently. Will Mumbai Indians struggle? It'll all depend on that bottom four teams. At the moment, those bottom four teams don't look like mounting a serious challenge or pushing teams at the top at the moment. So it may not happen. So even though it's neutral venues is something that could put a little bit of a spanner. But they're far too good a team to think that they won't qualify. And once you qualify, like Dale said, it's you need a couple of good days and you're the champions, and which they are used to it.
Okay, well, we'll see. Today could be with that day. The more you criticize the Mumbai Indians, the more they'll show up, and suddenly they'll have their best day, and that will, obviously be inconsistent with what Dale Steyn and Ajit Agarkar and everyone else on our show has been going with. Because whatever we say, the teams tend to just surprise us, make us look silly. Right? Let's take a break from the game itself, and it's time for a little quizzing. So let's get to our Intel fastest fan first. Okay, easy as you like. You know the rules. I'll get the questions up, and whoever's hand up first gets to answer. So Dale and Ajit, be ready. Let's take our first question. It's Mumbai Punjab related. It could be very recent questions in the IPL as well. First question is, which player from either of these squads has represented the Hobart Hurricanes in the Big Bash League 2020 and also picked up 16 wickets?
I guess it's the guy that's not playing tonight, hey?
Yeah.
All right, Dale, have a go.
Well, what's his name? Meredith.
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah.
But Ajit also knew. I could see he knew that one was.
Could be anyone else could it. I mean,
yeah. It was either Richardson or Meredith.
Got the wickets at the right time, just before the auction.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
good, very good time. All right, let's take our next question. Dale Steyn takes a nice lead. Which franchise did the current bowling coach of Mumbai play for? All right, Ajit. The current bowling coach of Mumbai.
Oh yeah,
Shane Bond.
KKR.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
was just wondering which bowling coach, because there's Zahir there as well. So.
There are a few. Doesn't Zahir have a more fancier title, director or something like that of cricket operations?
Yeah. But I mean, I had to think for a moment. Although I played with Bondi when he was at KKR. So.
Yeah. All right. Straight up 1-1. Shane Bond played for KKR in the IPL. Wonderful bowler that he was. Let's have a look at our final question. One apiece between Ajit and Dale. Which player top scored for Mumbai in their previous game against Delhi? These are sometimes the hardest questions. All right. Who top scored for Mumbai in the last game?
Oh, last game against Delhi.
You'd almost replay the whole game in your mind and try to think of who scored runs.
I don't even know. Sky? Did he score some runs?
Yeah, no, not Surya. It's Rohit Sharma with the 44 managed. Played well, and Mishra getting him out was sort of triggered the middle order collapse.
Yeah.
So these are the hard ones actually. You'll remember them, but what's happened 2 days back tend to be the hardest. All right, what sort of score are we expecting at the CHEPAUK? And then I'd like maybe a quick chat on Hardik Pandya as well. He's been in this position before, Ajit, when India toured Australia. He played as a specialist batsman, and we're trying to think of whether that would add any extra pressure on Pandya to perform more regularly. It seems like that pressure is back on him. The runs still haven't come though.
Yeah, and very unusual because he really impressed as a pure batsman. I thought it's there's a lot of pressure just being a pure batsman when an all-rounder, giving a few overs, batting at 6 or 7. It's a little bit less pressure. You still have to play well and score runs. But he was very impressive. Batted like a proper batsman at number 5. So that's why it's a little bit of a surprise how he's gone in this competition so far. I think more than the lack of runs is the way that he's gotten out. And perhaps these aren't conditions that he needs to play those shots. Give himself a little bit more time, and sometimes that could mean 2 or 3 balls extra, which at the moment he hasn't done. Far too good a player, or far too much ability to for those numbers not to improve. But he's a key player, because if he doesn't have a good season, Mumbai Indians will keep scrapping. Others will have to do a lot more because he can change games on his own. So I'm not quite sure why he's playing those shots. It's perhaps just too much confidence in himself at this point, but might just need to tone it down a little bit.
Dale, Pollard before the Pandya brothers would help?
Yeah, I think if Pollard's probably feeling a little bit more confident with the bat right now than Hardik and Krunal, so I would probably push Pollard ahead of them. And I'm not saying that Hardik's not a good batter or Krunal's not a good batter. They are marvelous batters. And when we also talk about giving themselves a little bit more time, Ajit was perfect. He hit the nail on the head over there. It's not like he needs to bat for 5 overs longer. He needs to give himself 2 or 3 more balls, just 2 or 3 more balls, just to get a better feel, just to get the understanding of the wicket, the pace of the wicket. These guys are so good. That's all they require, 2 or 3 balls. And then he can start to get going. But he seemed to have pushed the trigger a little bit too early. And I think now he's sitting in a situation where he's like, do I bat long or do I just bash my way into form? And it can go either way. The other day he could have hit that for 6 and he could have just felt, okay, now I'm going, but it didn't. He got caught. And now he's probably sitting there thinking, how am I going to go about it tonight? But in terms of who I'd bat, I'd probably push Pollard ahead of him, just purely because I think you're going to get more out of Pollard right now.
All right, let's see how Mumbai go. For those of you that follow domestic cricket, there's a key little matchup to keep an eye out for, which is Deepak Hooda against Krunal Pandya. If you follow what happened at Baroda cricket, then you'd know that could be an added incentive for both those players, especially for Hooda. We'll pick up the chat with Ajit Agarkar and Dale Steyn on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Time Out, powered by Intel at halftime. Let's see how many Mumbai get. Big game for the Punjab Kings, you think. Let's see if they can keep this strong Mumbai down to a few runs.
We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる